Live from Central Texas, this is the Plutopia News Network Happy Hour. I'm happy. I'm Scoop Sweeney. Those two other folks over there, they are happy-ish, I understand. John Lebkowski, Suzy Sheeler. We're just pleased to be here. Well, I'm happy to be anywhere these days.
I am assuming that there are tons of people out there right now who are listening to us.
Yeah.
So because they don't want to listen to the hearings tonight, because the hearings will disturb them.
Well,
But we will disturb them too.
Yes.
We will talk about not just food, but hot sauces.
Ooh.
now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
I'm renowned in this neighborhood, at least in this household, for my reckless seasoning.
You're not recording us, by the way.
Oh,
You got to put us on YouTube.
it's recording.
Oh,
Yeah, I gotta know.
I see it now. It's hidden.
There you go.
I couldn't see the little recording widget up there because Jimi Hendrix was right behind it.
See how Jimmy does you?
That pesky guitar player was in the way again. He doesn't return my calls anymore.
So I promised that we would talk about food tonight, and nobody objected. So I can kick things off by talking about eating low fat, which turns out to be a bit of a challenge when you first get into it. I had a bout of pancreatitis, and following that, I got the counsel that I should eat no more than 20% of my calories as fat. And you might think like 20% of your calories is a lot, but it's not. When you look at things, well, actually, you can't really tell when you're looking at a nutritional label. It's not clear what percentage of the calories are fat calories, because that's not part of the label, at least not normally. I have seen it on labels, but rarely. And the way that you have to calculate that is by taking the number of grams of fat and multiplying that times 9 to get the number of fat calories. There's 9 calories in a gram of fat, so I'm told. So you multiply that, and then you divide it by the total calories in the serving, and then you get that percentage, right?
God, that's a lot of math.
You get the revelation. It's a lot of math. So I've actually been doing this, though, quite a bit, and I've developed kind of a feel for it. But where this started, oh, shoot.
Oh, you're mupping.
Somebody else talk. Let me mute.
I didn't realize there were any math quizzes.
I know. I mean, when I'm hungry, I just want to eat something.
Well, if I calculated the fat in my diet, that'd be easy. Like it's pretty much way up there, whatever number that equates.
The stuff that tastes good is usually full of fat.
Yeah, I'm from that school of thought where you only been here so long, and if you avoid all these wonderful things as you're on your deathbed, you go, I should have eaten that, and I didn't do it. So I'm trying to make sure I don't have any of those regrets.
I have an answer for that, though, which is that food has an impact on your quality of life. And if your quality of life is degraded by some problem that's created by what you've eaten.
Let's define quality of life. For me,
well, for instance,
quality of life is traveling and eating new things. And, you know, if my health is degraded, that might not bother me so much. I like to eat, and my quality of life, if I were to eat and not eat what I'd like to eat. And I'm not saying this is me, I'm just saying if, hypothetically, and I take care of my, actually it was me for a little bit. I was not eating for a long time because of depression. And then I started losing quite a bit of weight, and I really liked that. so I didn't eat. I mean, I don't know what that is, if that's anorexia, I don't know what that is, but for about 3.5 years, I didn't eat other than, I would eat apples and peanut butter, and that was it. Nothing
I think that's
else,
called a
nothing
fast,
else.
Mhm.
Okay.
an apple and peanut butter fast.
So that went on for years, and I lost quite a bit of weight on it. But you know, now at this point in my life, ever since the pandemic, I feel very differently about that. You know, I feel like if you have a chance to eat something and you really want to eat it, fucking eat it. I'm not into the just eat all the time stuff, but if you want to get a donut from Gordo's once every month and a half, do it. Is that, you think that's wrong?
Well, it's easier to put that donut aside if you're concerned that it's going to send you to the ER at 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's not going to happen to everybody. The problem that the medical problem I had was kind of rare, but I'm sorry I got interrupted there. I was going to kind of explain this sequence of events that started with a conversation my wife and I had walking a trail somewhere where we were talking about our concern about strokes.
Mm.
And of course, strokes are associated with, I don't know, high cholesterol, sludge in your system, so to speak, plaque in your veins, that sort of thing, things that can cause blockages. It can also be bleeds. And the question is, to what extent is that related to nutrition? And I was aware of a diet called the Engine Number 2 diet.
Oh,
A guy named Rip
yes.
Eselton does this thing. Yeah. You know, we're Whole Foods alumni and promoting that diet for a while.
I
In
noticed that
fact, the last time
everybody.
I talked to John Mackey, he had been on that diet for a while.
And did he look like he was gray?
At the time, he looked pretty healthy.
Okay, I saw him after years of being on that diet, and he looked gray, like he had been taking colloidal silver or something, you know?
Ooh, I saw somebody who had taken colloidal silver and they were blue. They were a blue
they were
color.
this weird color. That's what he looked like to me.
Is that where Smurfs come from?
No, these
They-
are
yeah,
taller people.
Well, but I don't want to digress too much. So we talked about this, and I got one of Rip's books, and you know, I had seen him speak before, and I kind of was aware of the diet.
Mhm.
And it's basically a vegan diet, but a vegan diet with no oil, no fats,
Ooh.
a no fat diet. I mean, they avoid fats completely. And his dad was like a cardiologist, I think, a cardiac physician. And he had learned some things about how to have the optimum heart health from his dad. And he had been an athlete himself and had these practices for years. And he had gone to work as a fireman and was working in this firehouse.
Wow.
Where, of course, the guys had terrible diets. And he got them all to start doing this essentially vegan diet with no oil.
Wow. 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 Wow.
So we decided that we were going to go on that diet, but then we decided that it was a bit too strict, that we were going to go on the vegan diet. Well, it turns out that a lot of vegan dishes have a lot of fat in them, a lot of oil. It could be a good oil like olive oil, but it could still be a bit intense. Vegan diets aren't necessarily healthy diets. They can be, but they're not necessarily. And
Too much of anything.
And we started eating meals that we got from like Purple Carrot and that sort of thing. We were trying to follow a good vegan diet, and it went on for about 10 days. And then I found myself in the ER with an inflamed pancreas.
I didn't know it was from your being on that diet.
I don't know that it was. I mean, it's a correlation. It's not necessarily a causation. But
well, what if stopping eating that fat on a regular basis, like I don't know, you ate something, you were on a diet that didn't feed that for a while.
Well, I
don't
mean,
know,
it,
that's
it can be
crazy.
various things. It could be alcohol.
Mhm.
Um, it could be something to do with my diet. It could be gallstones, which would be diet related too.
Right.
But whatever the case, I decided that the vegan diet was probably a bit much for me. And I got some validation of that from a dietitian who said, really, part of the problem was probably that I made a fairly radical diet change all at once. I didn't just kind of work my way into it, which could have been a shock
Right.
to the system. So,
Well, you
but
never think about that, do you, when you go on a diet? You don't think about easing into it. You think about just changing everything right now, throwing out all the bad stuff and eating all the good stuff. And then about
Always, that's
2
always
weeks
the
into
problem
it,
with diets. I've done, starvation diets. I went for a week and a half on nothing but beef and chicken broth. That's it, nothing else. And I lost to like 40 pounds.
sure,
I thought
yeah.
I was going to die.
well, and an interesting thing, if you start eating a low fat diet, I've been eating uh, a lot of carbs. And, I was taught over time that carbs were a great sin and that you should never eat them. And then I've been eating carbs a lot since this thing started. And it turns out if you're eating a low fat diet, a lot of what I can eat that's low fat has carbs in it, right? So I'm
Yeah,
eating things like bagels are low fat, for
right.
instance.
Yeah, we had a visit from family members who were on the Atkins keto diet.
Oh,
God
whoa.
forbid. I mean, they brought all sorts of stuff. And uh, I spent a lot of time choking stuff down.
That is insane. The meat and the
I'm
cheese, and it's so
sorry.
antithetical. What?
Well, and part of my understanding of the keto diet is that you're supposed to put calories aside as a source of energy in favor of fat, which means you do eat a lot of fat on that diet. And I've become very skeptical about fat. There's a guy named Michael Greger, a doctor, who has a book called he's got two books. One is called How Not to Die, and his other one is How Not to Diet. And
Nice.
I read his section on of that latter book on fat specifically, and with a lot of facts. And I don't necessarily have all those facts at the top of mind right now, but he lays out a pretty good case for low fat, like lower fat consumption. And
I
he
don't
especially
disagree
makes
with
the
you.
case that low fat a low fat diet with a lot of carbs is less likely to cause you to gain weight or hold weight than a high fat diet. Of course, a high fat diet with a lot of carbs is worse than a high fat diet with no carbs, I guess.
Yeah,
But
probably so, because carbs, depending on how, especially which carbs, they easily, don't they essentially turn into sugars, which turn into fat, carbs mostly. And if you burn it off or you eat fiber with it, with the sugar anyway, I know that.
well, it's
Then
a little
it,
more complicated. You can have more complex carbohydrates, and they have a lower glycemic index, which means that they're slower to convert to sugar, I think.
that's good.
I've been doing a lot of cooking for a long time. Basically, I do all the cooking around here because my wife is disabled and can't get into the kitchen. So I've been doing it for a long time. And I found that making stuff that you enjoy far outweighs my concerns about whether I'm going to live to be 93. I've seen people who live to 93 and I really don't want to do that. I'm seeing how that works out. And I'm just enjoying having good food that I don't do stupid stuff like, eating stuff that's poisonous. But living for so long in the Bay Area, I had a lot of vegan and vegetarian friends, and they were the most unhealthy people I've ever known. They were always ill. They had colds, they had flu, they had intestinal problems that were horrifying. And I'm there eating my cheeseburger going, dude, eat a burger once in a while. You're killing yourself. Because maybe it was just the people I hung with, but these were very religious, in the
I've been a majority of my life, most of my adult life, with a few exceptions. I've been a vegetarian or pescatarian, I guess is really what I should say, because I do eat fish. Not often, but when I, go out, I'll have salmon or something. But
which is very high in fat, by the way.
It is, and it's again, I don't have it very often. It's like I've recognized that there are things I cannot eat because they, like peanut butter, I can't eat it. It makes me gain weight almost immediately. Does that make sense? I mean, just like one jar of peanut butter will last me a week, which is not good, first of all. And so I obviously am going to gain weight. I can't have it in the house or I'll eat it. That's another thing. I've kind of a weird relationship with food since maybe, I don't know, most of my life, probably.
I've become pretty skeptical of most diets, really, and especially diets that don't include some diversity. The one that I think is probably, and I think a lot of people agree with this, that probably the best diet to follow is the so-called Mediterranean diet. And it's basically, you eat a lot of plants, you eat some meat, and I'm not sure whether it's what the fat content would be following the Mediterranean diet. I think it would probably vary a lot, just kind of depending on how you follow the diet.
One of my girlfriends made us do the paleo diet, and it was like the worst thing I've ever done in my life. I fucking hate coconut. I hate coconut so much.
Eat coconuts. I mean, is there some logic behind that?
I think they use a lot of coconut oil, don't they?
They use coconut oil. They use coconut milk. They use coconut flour. It is the stupidest, coconutiest diet I've ever heard of. And I didn't like coconut going into this.
Well, coconut is the palm oil, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's
really bad for you.
There's a thing called MCT oil, which is derived from either coconut or palm kernel oil, whatever. And one of the things I got from the dietitian was advice to have MCT oil around and sprinkle it on foods, especially foods that are a little bit higher in fat, before I eat them. She said that it would help the fat absorption. It would help my body to absorb the fat. And I think part of that is because apparently MCT oil is not handled the same way by the body as other oils. And I think that it doesn't really have any interaction with the pancreas and the pancreatic enzymes. That's kind of what I think I've been able to gather. I wish I understood the science of all of this stuff better, but I'm learning.
Yeah, nutrition is very important, but I also, for me, like I'm kind of on Scoop's side on this, is like my quality of life kind of ideal is to enjoy rather than to lengthen, I guess. Yeah. And it's not just lengthen. I know that it can just make you sick. It can make you very unhealthy and you may continue to live. I understand that also. But I think things are just going to go the way they're going to go. I don't smoke. I don't eat red meat,
But you probably wouldn't eat something that would cause you to get up at 2 a.m. in horrible pain, right?
Well, okay, now let me tell you a story.
Yeah, if that was happening to me, I would definitely modify my diet.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
happened to me recently is I've spent a lot of time at hospitals, not me as a patient, but visiting my wife because she was inpatient for essentially a month and a half at Del
Right.
Seton, and it's a nice hospital, but they have the worst food. I thought she was going to starve to death. Yeah, I would have to go and sneak stuff into her because their stuff was
Oh no.
god awful. And I thought, well, maybe it's just the stuff they send to the rooms. I went down to their cafe, that's in big quotes, and that's where all the employees work, all the doctors and nurses and aides and stuff. And it was terrible. I mean, they had some healthy looking stuff, but prepackaged and wrapped in plastic that was made somewhere else. The stuff that they were making there looked like some roadside fry cook.
Terrifying.
I mean, it was just, they had big steam trays full of pre-cooked
Some kind of meat.
burger patties and fried stuff and all this stuff. The only thing I found that was really not that poisonous is getting a grilled cheese sandwich.
Oh, that's always safe, mostly.
I'm an anyway, I like grilled cheese sandwiches. So I lived on grilled cheese sandwiches for a while. So I had to go home and have some really healthy stuff.
Some food, no kidding.
The interesting thing that happened when I was in the ER that first time, and when I was discharged, the information I got was very sort of sketchy and limited. They didn't really help me very much to understand what I really could eat or how long I should eat a certain way or whatever. They didn't tell me to go on a liquid diet, a clear liquid diet, which is actually kind of the advice they should have given me. The second visit to the ER, which happened about a month and a half later, because I, ate the wrong kinds of things for where I was in recovering, they made it much clearer that I should be on the clear liquid diet for at least for 3 days, I think it was. And then following that, I met with a dietitian who, among her specialties was like diabetes and pancreatic conditions and that sort of thing. And she actually gave me a lot of really good information about how to eat. She's the one who told me to eat no more than 20% of my calories as fat, for instance. And she's the one who told me about the MCT oil. And I came out of that much smarter. But if I had known all of that stuff earlier on, I would have had a happier few weeks.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely, and the pancreatitis, that's a scary one. That's scarier than gallstones and stuff,
Well, it can be really bad. And my case was fairly mild. I didn't have all of the symptoms. I just had the pain.
Right.
But I think what happens to people is that they get the pain and they don't deal with it, and it gets worse and worse. And by the time they get to the hospital, they're in pretty bad shape. Usually people stay in the hospital for, I've heard like 4 or 5 days is very common for pancreatitis. And I was just there for 36 hours.
It's just, it's just terrible. I can't imagine the pain that must have caused. It just had to have been horrible.
Well,
I modified my diet back. John remember me having a heart attack back, I guess that's like 2015, because I had a lot of plaque in my veins. One was like 95% closed. They installed, stents in there and made me into a new person. And a lot of the people that I'd met in cardiac rehab in Austin that were working with patients were kind of confessing off the record that, yeah, we go out and eat all that stuff too, because you have to just be smart about what you eat. He's like, too much of anything is going to be bad for you. I mean,
Yeah.
water is bad for you. It's a matter of using your brain and saying, okay, I've been eating a whole lot of red meat. I should, cool it. And that's kind of how I modify my diet is I'll realize, well, I've been eating a lot of meat. Maybe we have a lot of vegetarian dishes. I have a huge, or my wife has a huge vegetarian cookbook, like 1,000 recipes. And
Oh, wow. Yeah.
that is great. It makes me feel good. So I'll do vegetarian for a while, but I just found that my quality of life and my middle quality suffered if I was punishing myself by not doing anything that I like. And
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a hedonist. I like to feel good. I like to enjoy what I do. I like to enjoy my food. And so
Yeah.
that's my direction.
But
And
I will say, I
what
was on a
is
drug called gabapentin. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
I've
Maybe
heard of
some.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Clarissa is on gabapentin.
And I've been on it and off of it for years and years and years. And usually when I go on it, I gain weight. And that's when I say I got to get off of it. This time I noticed that it had really somehow stymied my ability to say no to things that I really wanted to eat. And one of those things was a Greek gods yogurt, and that comes in these like pint sizes or whatever that is.
I love that stuff.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It's full fat, full sugar. It is so, the texture is beyond belief. And it's called Greek gods because I would think that they actually ate that. It's so good. It's like ambrosia, right? But I ate so much of that while I was on that gabapentin that within 6 months I had to get on a statin. So I stopped taking gabapentin, and within 6 months I didn't need to be on a statin anymore. There it is.
Yep.
And it's the honey vanilla and the one that's just honey down there. Oh my God, they're so good.
I got stuck on, and I was angry at Central Market because they stopped carrying it.
Oh, they're so stupid.
Is Greek gods yogurt listed as a side effect of gabapentin?
No, but what I think gabapentin does is it really takes away that part of your brain that says, I can eat whatever I want. It makes me feel better to do that. I think that's a side effect of the gabapentin. If something feels, and I have several friends who've been on it who have said, yeah, I started drinking a lot on it, or I started smoking more cigarettes on it. So I think it's a side effect people should really be aware of, because I gained significant weight when I've been on that stuff. It's not, maybe it, I don't know. I think you need to be careful when you're on it.
I've eaten drugs that were supposed to cause you to have a loss of appetite, and it had the opposite effect on me.
Exactly.
Yeah, the reason that Teresa is on gabapentin is to get her off of oxycodone, which, I mean, when you've been on a hard narcotic like that for months, it's time for a change. And it definitely helped. I mean, it's not as much of a painkiller as oxycodone, but it's not as addictive.
They switch me. I mean, sometimes they just add gabapentin, and then I'll say, I can't take this anymore. But what they usually do is switch me from OxyContin to morphine, and then morphine back to OxyContin. It's just that medicine wheel that keeps going around.
Mm-hmm.
And so is she getting off? Is she getting off totally?
She's been off of oxycodone for a month and a half now.
Wow.
Because it was just it was too much, and talking to the doctors, it was like they were saying, it's especially her personal physician. He said it's really time to get off of that, because she was not using it except after her amputation. And when that happened, of course, there was a lot of pains, but there comes a time when you have to get off of that, or there's problems with having the opiates. If you can avoid it.
Some people get habitual.
Yeah, I've been on them since 2007. And it's a daily thing.
Mhm.
I take them.
Have you ever like been in a situation where you had to stop, or have you ever actually, I know
I,
you have, I mean, I know a little bit about your pain issues, but I also know that there's an increasing tendency for doctors to kind of not want to prescribe opiates.
I've been doing this for so long, and I've never ever presented any problems. They call me opiate tolerant, which means that like I can sit here and have a conversation with you, and I'm on 60 milligrams of morphine right now, and I'm not having a real big issue following or anything. And I'm not mentally dependent on it. If they could tell me, hey, here's something that's not narcotic that will do the same thing, I would happily take it. I would happily take that. But there isn't anything. And so it doesn't, there are a lot of changes that were made because I lived here. I was taking a lot a lot more than I am now. Then I moved to North Carolina, taking even more there. And then when I got back here, I got on a normal level of them. But it's something that I'll be on for the rest of my life.
Well,
And
the reason the doctors have been hesitant to prescribe opiates is for the obvious reason that it's been in the news about the opiate the epidemic.
yeah.
A lot of people dying and a lot of doctors getting in trouble for running pill mills, basically.
Overprescribing is a problem.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And now when Teresa was taking oxycodone, there was no running prescription. It was every time you had to get a brand new prescription from
Yep, every month.
Yeah.
And you get
if
pee
you didn't have it, there was
tested.
no going to the pharmacy say, well, just give me a little bit. It's like, nope, you need a
No.
prescription or nothing.
And they test me every month to make sure, and there's the interesting thing that I found out a while back. When they test you, they're testing for things that are illegal substances, right? Cocaine, PCP, THC sometimes. And they're also testing to make sure that those drugs are in your system. Because if they're not, they want to know why you had that prescription filled and where those drugs are.
Yeah.
Because you could go out and sell them.
Right.
So when
A
I
lot of
get
people have
tested,
done that.
they want to make sure that I have the correct level of drugs in my system, or they'll take them away. I mean, there are rules you have to follow, stringent.
Well, Rush Limbaugh didn't follow them, and
That was when they were
where he
handing them
ended up.
out. Like, can't,
Yeah,
I
he ended
know.
up getting the Medal of Freedom.
And then,
Yeah.
and then dead.
Well, yeah. I mean, he didn't die from that, though, did he?
I'm sure it didn't help.
No. I wonder if they gave him any though when he was sick, because cancer patients are usually folks who do get that particular drug.
Yeah. I think so my understanding of the opiate problem is that it was a problem with OxyContin. And I've seen, I know a little bit about sort of what Purdue Pharmaceuticals was doing, and they were like pushing that stuff really hard. And
it's not addictive. It's not addictive.
And claiming it was not addictive. Yeah. But OxyContin was not only addictive, but it was a sustained release version of oxycodone, which you could grind up and you could get a much heavier dose of it if you like took your pill and ground it up and like maybe snorted it or something.
And you can't do that anymore. There's a coating on it.
Right. And you shouldn't have been able to do it in the first place. Well, I mean, I don't kind of understand that. Like anytime I've taken opiates, I would take less, not more than what they told me to take. Like I might cut them in half or something. Apparently some people just feel they have to have more and more of them in order to have the same effect.
I don't think that's true. I think people want more and more of them because they're addicted to them. That's my feeling.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah,
it's
a lot
not
of
that
people
they've got
get that
pain.
opiate buzz, which
Yeah.
that's part of the whole the addiction thing. Is it's not just treating some sort of pain that you have. If the pain's been dealt with and you're continuing along, you're doing it because you have that opiate buzz. And I've experienced that a few times when I was on painkillers, and
Sure. That's why
I,
people like it so
I
much.
sort of liked
Yeah.
it, but
It
then
feels good.
I didn't, because I didn't feel like me after having taken too much of that stuff.
And see, I don't get that buzz. That it happened to me like when I was younger and I would be put on Vicodin for a toothache or something.
Mhm.
But I don't get that. It doesn't affect me like that.
Well, my understanding is that if you actually have real pain and you're taking it for that pain, you really don't get the buzz from it. It deals with the pain.
Mm.
I'm not exactly sure how that works, like psychologically or internally,
I have no idea.
but I hear that over and over again. That people say that. Well, Marcia was saying it when she had oxycodone after knee surgery, and she didn't notice any buzz from it at all. But it was the one thing that would help her deal with the pain.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and with that kind of pain, especially like Marcia had, or like Clarissa
Yeah.
had, it it was necessary, but at a certain point, you you can't just keep on doing that, because all this people that I've known a number of people who have passed away because of that. Just riding that
Well,
until
yeah.
the end.
If it's an addiction, if it's that kind of a chasing the dragon thing, then absolutely
Yeah.
it's bad. But I mean, if like I said, I've been on it since 2007, and it's a daily thing for me. And I, I I get my liver checked and all that stuff, once a year to make sure everything's okay. But I mean, I swear to God, I would love to get off it, because and I've asked my doctors, like, so what happens if the world explodes and I can't get these drugs? Am I gonna die because I'm going to withdrawals?
Well, if the
And
world
they said no. They said no, you would die from if you stopped drinking, but you're just going to get really sick. You're physically going to get sick
Mhm.
if you stop the drugs, but you're not going to die. But quit drinking and you will if you're an alcoholic, which again is like, why is alcohol legal? I don't understand.
Wait a minute, you're saying a person who is an alcoholic that stops drinking is going to die from?
They can, from DTs. Yeah. In fact,
Oh yeah.
I really hate to. A friend of mine, very good friend of mine from high school, died this last year from an alcohol-induced seizure.
Mm.
Now, we don't know if she drank so much that the seizure happened, or if she had stopped drinking abruptly to try to stop drinking and
Mhm.
had a seizure that way. We don't know, but you can die from
Yeah.
trying to stop drinking too fast.
Yeah, I've had friends that experienced that. In fact, I had one that was working for me on a big public event in Oakland, and it was a long time, partier and drank to extremes. And he kept asking me if he could, come work on one of my events. I said, well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to be drinking, yeah, I mean, you can't be drunk on the job. And the guy said,
Yeah.
oh no, I hadn't been drinking in a long time. I'm okay. So he was lying, because apparently he had been, doing his usual thing, but he showed up, and when he wasn't allowed to drink, after 2 days, he had a severe seizure, and we had to actually call an ambulance and have him hauled
Ouch.
away. And it's like, yeah, I didn't talk to the guy for a long time, just because I kind of felt, you lied to me because you wanted to get a job, but you caused yourself to almost die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's alcoholism and alcohol, overindulgence of alcohol is it's so scary to me. I mean, I've heard cops say I'd much rather deal with, 5 guys who are stoned than 5 guys who are totally drunk.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, that's, you can just,
Well, we're talking about addiction and also supposed to be talking about food. I really do have an addiction. I'm addicted to hot, spicy, hot sauce, peppers, anything like that. Thai food that's been, just overdosed with those great peppers that they use in
can
things
you do
like
ghost
curries.
peppers?
I've done ghost peppers, but that's just a bit over the top. That's yeah.
I don't know who can
I'm
eat
not into
those,
S&M
man.
so much, but I am into. I love hot, spicy stuff. I'm renowned here in my household for my reckless seasoning, but for
Whoa,
Teresa being Portuguese, they do reckless seasoning as well. She's given
right,
Portuguese recipes that are just killer. And they don't
man.
have peppers in them. It's all these other spices that the Portuguese use. And we make it's called soupish. It's a meat soup that is made with, beef and all sorts of spices. And the end result is it's spicy to an extreme.
Yeah.
And I love it, of
Wow.
course. But
Well,
I, you know, that's one of my guilty pleasures. I love, discovering a new spicy dish, a new spicy
yeah.
recipe.
I can't do spice. I mean, I can do salsa because I'm from Texas, but I can't
Mhm.
do like the Tabasco freaks me out. I don't like the way it smells. None of that kind of stuff. It just smells like vinegar to me.
I wish I could show you our collection of hot sauces here. It's Colton. It's our grandson. He he's a collector of hot sauces, and there's
Oh,
a ton of them down there, and some of them sometimes they're really expensive. I recall getting a little tiny bottle once that was like $32.
wow.
It's
Worth
kind of
it.
amazing.
Mhm.
And um, I started eating some of those things. I haven't been lately, partly because they were a little bit high in fat. Not the hot sauces, but you can get things that are kind of like cheese puffs, except they have pepper in them.
Oh,
HEB
yeah,
has
yeah.
Carolina Reaper puffs,
I
I've
and
love
tried
they're
pepper.
those.
pretty damn good, And I
I know.
started, speaking of addiction, I started developing kind of an addiction to those at one point.
Isn't it weird how people have these weird relationships to food? I don't know anyone who has really just a normal relationship with food. Like, I eat when I'm hungry. And I think if it is, I eat when I'm hungry, I eat when I'm hungry, but I don't eat green things. I have a friend who literally will not eat green things, and she's 53 years old.
That's probably not that uncommon.
That's what
I'm in the habit
yeah,
now of just,
exactly.
I had to avoid salad dressings. Um, for instance, when traveling, I would never know how much oil there was in the salad dressing. So I started eating salads without dressing, and they were fine. It was actually pretty good. Um, or at least I was so conditioned to use salad dressings, it never occurred to me that it would be just as good without the dressing.
So you
Have
don't
you guys,
you
oh,
don't
go ahead.
enhance your salad in any way?
Well, I have found fat-free dressings that I can use here at home, but if I'm out traveling, I won't put much on there. I'll tell them to put it on the side, put a little bit
Little
on.
little vinegar on the side. That always
Yeah.
is good in there. Um, yeah, the salad dressing you have to get on the side always.
We
'Cause you don't
took
even-
a trip to Colorado about a month ago, and we're there for like, I don't know, 10 or 11 days. And I pretty much every day would eat. I mean, I had to find something that I could eat wherever we went. And it tended to be some kind of salad with some chicken on top,
Mhm.
and without dressing much of the time. And I thought I was going to have more of a problem, but I never had a problem finding something to eat. Well, I did. I mean, there were some restaurants we couldn't go to because I'd look at the menu and they wouldn't have anything really.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there are some places that just have everything's fried, and the salad bar is like iceberg and some tomatoes and ranch dressing.
We found a place in Boulder. I think it was called Flower Power, and they had a number of dishes. And they had a downloadable PDF connected to their online menu that listed all of the nutritional information for every dish they had.
Oh,
So
wow.
in that is one case where I could see exactly how much fat I was getting, you know?
That's an
Good. That's very good.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, restaurants usually don't give you that kind of a nutritional breakdown.
yeah, I have a routine that I do when I go into a new restaurant, particularly something that's like a Thai restaurant or a Chinese place that specializes in something like Sichuan or Hunan style dishes. And when I look at the menu, they word it to where it's like, obvious they don't have a whole lot of hot stuff in it. It's there's a way of I'm trying to think of an example, but there's a way that they read that the menu reads where you just know it's been done for mom and pop, not for the crazy people like me who really like to torture them their taste buds. But I
Well,
found a great place on Guadalupe that I don't know if they're still there. It's down by the university, and it's a Chinese. I'm sorry, it's a Thai place, and they served a Panang curry that I thought I'd had the hottest, but they came to the table and said, "Now, do you want a student curry or do you want Thai style curry?" I said, "Oh, however you serve your family, that's what I want." And it just nearly took my head off, but I loved every minute of it.
that's awesome. How
I
does it treat your stomach when you do that?
do what?
How does your stomach handle that?
Hey, years and years, decades, in fact, of
Scar
reckless.
tissue?
It's like stomach reacts badly if I don't give it some spicy stuff. It's like, what are you doing?
Hey, have you guys seen that there's a new show on, I'm assuming it's a documentary, but it is how to change your mind.
Got to change your mind. Yeah, I
And it's the
actually
Michael
read that
Pollan.
book.
Me
Yeah.
too. Did you see that they're doing
I watched
movie or
part of the first episode and found it pretty good. It had a lot of like historical information. They were kind of talking about the history of psychedelics there,
Cool.
and I'm very interested in watching the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I'm hearing that. I mean, apparently it might be easier to get mushrooms legalized here than it will be to get marijuana.
Well, there was just something today about, gosh, I don't know where it was. Maybe it was in California, but there was something about how people were going to be able to get psilocybin for some conditions.
Yeah, in California, there's been a movement for that for a long time, and so they have loosened up a lot of their laws.
And you can get anything in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Jamie Ellerby, you remember Jamie, is going to join us again, and he's bringing somebody with him who will be able to talk a bit about psychedelics.
All right.
Jamie's the one who sent me the thing about. This was at the federal level. They're working on its RTT, right to try legislation.
What? You get to try something once?
Oh, go burst over that.
Making psilocybin accessible for palliative care, I think. Psilocybin assisted therapy. There's a whole number of things that he sent me today.
Should be for, I think some places are using it for PTSD, which is brilliant.
A lot of good experiences with the PTSD treatments because it really helps address a lot of the underlying causes of that.
It's a reset. I do it probably at least once every 10 years. I just find it to just be a big reset, you know, it just really changes lets me step out and laugh at what I've done and who I was. And then for the next 3 or 4 days, I just really think about all of that stuff. And it's just like a whole new chapter opens, you know?
Well, it's a terrible thing that psychedelics were politicized, you know, and that's exactly what happened. And the whole thing about making them illegal in the same way really dangerous drugs are illegal is kind of a strange thing that happened. But it was a cultural problem, really, you know, and people were really scared of psychedelics, and
Well, Timothy
partly because
Leary
people would
didn't
misuse
help.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
Timothy Leary
And
is the guy who really sort of
the
gave
electric
psychedelics a
Kool-Aid.
bad name.
Yes, and
Yeah,
all of the
that
Merry
affected a lot of
Pranksters,
things.
they really fucked a lot of stuff up. That was not cool. I mean, I just think that was so wrong to do.
Well, we thought, you know, I mean, I was sympathetic with hippies, or maybe I was a hippie. I don't know. I'm not sure what a hippie is, but there was a lot of stuff that we were doing back then that it was really questionable, and at the time we felt very righteous about it, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I get it. But at the same time, you know, making someone take a trip on acid without telling them about it
Yeah,
is
that's not good.
just fucked up.
Yeah,
Well, I always thought that LSD should be regarded as a kind of spiritual thing, you know, and it was good, you know, you should kind of have a guide to help you and that sort of thing, but that's not the way it was being used. It became a party drug.
Yep.
back in the late 70s, I did an interview with a professor at UC Berkeley who had studied the so-called love generation from Haight-Ashbury and Berkeley for a number of years, doing follow-up interviews with these people who had been hardcore into psychedelics. And basically, the result of his study was that basically the people who were screwed up after taking all of the drugs were screwed up
Before they took.
Before they took the
So there
drugs.
wasn't really a big change. It's like if you're a fuck up before, you were a fuck up afterward. But the people that went into it with the right ideas and not trying to make it into a religion or a big deal, they came in, they did it, and when they decided to stop doing it, they were pretty much in the same situation as when they started. And
Yeah.
it was a very extensive survey, and he interviewed a lot of people, and I was impressed by the results because it kind of coincided with what I saw with people I knew from living in Berkeley and in the Bay Area.
Right. What about the CIA using it and that wormwood, that whole wormwood thing?
Men who stare at goats.
No, well, yeah, that one too. But the wormwood was
experiments, on soldiers and on prisoners.
yeah.
There was a lot of the CIA tried a lot of sketchy stuff. Just they wanted to be able to do mind control, and they wanted to do remote viewing, and most of it turned out to just they didn't know how to do the experiments to begin with, so they were not that successful in a lot of them.
Ooh, this
Yeah.
reminds me. This is a memory I've held. I'm surprised I didn't forget this. I forget everything. But one thing I recall is a newsreel. A lot of people won't know what I'm talking about when I say newsreel, but it used to be that when you went to the movies, you didn't just see the movie, you would see a newsreel, which was sort of like a news broadcast now. I mean, television took that over, but back then they would show a newsreel before a movie, and then they'd show a cartoon. And on a newsreel, at the time that people were kind of freaking out about LSD, they showed a cat who had been given LSD and put in a cage or something with a mouse. And the cat, it appeared that the cat was terrified of the mouse.
Well, the cat was, the mouse was a fire-breathing dragon or something.
Yeah. Hey man, maybe that cat was just having a moment of of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Realizing it's in a cage and somebody is messing with it. It's like,
And oh
that's
my God, this
terrifying.
is what I do to you. I feel like you. Oh my God, you're my shadow. You could go crazy.
Yeah, now, see, if they'd given the mouse LSD too, they could have become pals.
Oh my God, they
They could have tripped together.
I had a friend who came home. He had a dog, and the dog had just turned 1. And he came home, and the dog had found his mushrooms and eaten half the bag.
Oh Lord.
So
no.
my friend took the rest of the mushrooms, and he and his dog went to the park.
That sounds, well, I mean,
What are you gonna do?
when eat the mushrooms.
Exactly. I mean, what are you gonna do? He was like, I'm coming.
Have to catch up with the dog.
But I do like that story because
I used to have a cat that really loved marijuana smoke. I'm not sure where he was getting it from, but couldn't have.
I've found that labradoodles.
Yeah, I mean, I was a good old boy, but then his face, he's just like, oh yeah, more, please.
God, my mom's dogs, both of them have eaten my marijuana before, and they don't handle it very well. They like it, but then they stumble around and pee on themselves.
Well, one thing that I just remembered trying, and it's not advisable, is there was a thing of smoking catnip.
Oh no.
Mixing catnip and marijuana and smoking that. And it was weird in not a great way. It's like it just kind of slows your whole brain down to where you feel like you're going like 2 miles an hour.
Oh no.
I think I may have tried that once, and I spent the night chasing a ball or a string.
Or a laser pointer.
Yeah.
Oh, banana peels too. We tried smoking banana peels. That was totally, there was a, well, it was like somebody just as a joke or a prank started telling people that if you smoke banana peels, you get high. And of course, there's the placebo effect. People could smoke them and get high because they were smoking a genuine placebo.
Well, Donovan sang about it, the electrical banana.
No, he was talking about Lowell Levenger, though.
Yeah, but everybody figured it was talking about smoking banana peels. So,
oh my God,
that's true. That's true. No, Lowell Levenger was a musician who called himself Banana, who was in the Youngbloods.
Oh yeah, okay.
I got to meet him eventually a few years ago at South by Southwest. Which was a big deal for me. A lot of people don't remember Banana, but I was a big Youngbloods fan.
That's very cool. Hey, do you think we're having an ACL this year? And where are we on COVID? Does anybody know what stage we're in? Everybody I know fucking has COVID.
It's going up.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are catching that. What is it? BA.5 or something like that, the new variation.
It's called what?
I think it was BA.5, if I'm not mistaken.
Something
or .5.
Yeah, it's way more transmissible, and just because you had all the vaccinations and boosters, it can still get you. That's why.
Yeah, it would be more. Your antibodies are going to be less effective than your T cells with some of those new variations. But the thing about it is that people have got so used to just.
It's coming back.
Kind of doing whatever, people aren't wearing masks anymore, and they're starting to go to like concert events and things like that. So people are exposing themselves in a big way, and that's why so many people are getting COVID now.
I'm supposed to go to Banksy tomorrow, and I'm wondering if it's going to be called for COVID.
No, they probably won't. They won't call it for COVID. I mean, today I was I went to meet some people at Central Market where you and I met, Suzy,
Yeah.
Central Market North. And, people were wandering around with no mask on, and people still aren't. I mean, there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of concern now. And I don't know that, the increases, I kept seeing it as being fairly flat compared to the big surge that we had, like I think it was last January or something.
Yeah.
Compared to January, it's not that big, but it's up like 20 some odd percent.
It's been, every time I've looked to the like 14-day data, it's been up, and right now it's so there's kind of an upward trend. Looking at the graph on the New York Times, you can see that it's come up from like mid-March when it was really pretty low. So right now, let's see, it says right now that the daily average is about 127,000 or almost 128,000. And in March, it was like 27,000 new cases.
Wow.
So
I think that's for, I'm not sure okay, yeah.
Well, we've gone over. It's after 8.
Oh, did we go over?
Sorry about that.
Those that aren't wearing the mask are the folks who believe
we are so undisciplined.
Denial is a river in Egypt, and it's that you do.
Well, thanks. This was great.
Bye,
I'm glad we got to talk about food, and now I'm going to go eat some.
Me too.
Stuff
all righty.
Off
we go. See you next week.
Later.
Bye.
Later.
You can follow the Plutopia News Network at plutopia.io. On Facebook, go to @Plutopia News. On Twitter, it's @Plutopia. This is the Plutopia News Network, 20 minutes into the future.